Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet turn slowly below. His four eyes focused on the swirling white clouds that covered much of the world's surface. This was his 13th conquest, and it looked just like all the others had at the beginning. The planet called Earth seemed so small and weak. His sensors showed scattered cities with primitive technology. The humans used metal vehicles that burned fossil fuels. Their weapons fired simple projectiles. Their communication systems were basic radio waves. Zethkar had conquered species far more advanced than this. "Sir, we've finished scanning their military capabilities," his aide, Sub-Commander Vextal, reported. "They have nuclear weapons, but not many. Their space program is limited to a few satellites and research stations. Most of their military forces are concentrated on land and sea." Zethkar nodded, his scaled head moving slowly. He had seen this pattern many times before. Every species thought they were strong until they met the Vorthan Empire. His fleet of 200 ships carried weapons that could destroy entire continents. His soldiers wore armor that could stop any Earth weapon. His technology was thousands of years ahead of anything these humans possessed. "Begin the standard intimidation. Broadcast," he ordered. The message went out to every human communication device on the planet. Zethkar's voice, translated into their various languages, was calm and direct. "People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Vorthan Empire. Surrender your weapons and governments. Comply, and you will be treated fairly. Resist, and you will be destroyed." On his screen, Zethkar watched the human response. Their leaders gathered in frantic meetings. Their military forces went to high alert. Their news broadcasts showed panic in the streets. It was exactly what he expected. But something felt different about these humans. When other species faced the Vorthan fleet, they usually tried to negotiate or surrender quickly. The humans did neither. Instead, their military forces began moving into defensive positions around their major cities. Their leaders made speeches about fighting to the end. Their civilians began volunteering for military service. "Foolish," Zethkar muttered. He had fought the crystalline warriors of Nexus Prime, who could regrow lost limbs in minutes. He had battled the hive-minded Skrell, who coordinated perfectly across entire planets. He had defeated the energy beings of the Luminari, who could pass through solid matter. All of them had eventually surrendered when they realized the power of the Vorthan Empire. The first human attack came 6 hours after his broadcast. A squadron of their fighter aircraft approached his fleet. Their missiles bounced harmlessly off his ship's shields. Their energy weapons barely registered on his damage sensors. Zethkar ordered a single escort ship to destroy them. The human fighters were wiped out in seconds. But instead of discouraging the humans, this seemed to make them angrier. More attack groups launched from their planet. Ships from their primitive navy fired missiles at his fleet. None of it could hurt his forces, but they kept coming. "Sir," Vextal said, studying his sensor readings, "their attack patterns are unusual. Most species stop attacking after losing the first wave. These humans are sending more forces even though they know they cannot win." Zethkar watched the tactical display. Small red dots representing human forces kept appearing and disappearing as his ships destroyed them. But for every group that was eliminated, 2 more appeared. The humans were throwing everything they had at his fleet, knowing it was useless. "They are either very brave or very stupid," he said. On the planet below, he could see human military leaders coordinating their response. A Marine captain named Jake Morrison was organizing the defense of a city called San Francisco. Despite knowing his forces were outmatched, Morrison was preparing his men for ground combat. He had turned the city's buildings into fortresses and armed civilians with military weapons. Dr. Lisa Bennett, a human scientist working in an underground facility, was studying pieces of Vorthan technology that had fallen from destroyed human aircraft. She was trying to understand how their weapons worked. Her team worked without sleep, analyzing alien metal and energy systems that should have been impossible for them to comprehend. Commander Rick Stone led a group of human naval vessels in the planet's largest ocean. His ships were ancient compared to Vorthan technology, but he positioned them to attack any Vorthan forces that tried to land on the coastlines. He knew his weapons could not penetrate Vorthan shields, but he prepared his ships for ramming attacks anyway. Zethkar had seen desperate last stands before. Every conquered species had their heroes who fought to the end. But something about these humans bothered him. They did not fight like a species facing extinction. They fought like a species that believed it could win. "Begin orbital bombardment of their military targets," he ordered. Destroy their command centers and weapons factories. Once they see their infrastructure burning, they will surrender. The Vorten fleet opened fire. Beams of superheated plasma struck human military bases around the planet. Explosions lit up the night sky as weapons factories and command bunkers were destroyed. Entire city blocks vanished in seconds, but the humans did not surrender. Instead, their resistance seemed to grow stronger. Military units that lost their command centers simply chose new leaders and kept fighting. Weapons factories that were destroyed had their equipment moved to hidden locations. Civilians who lost their homes picked up weapons and joined the military. Zethkar watched reports coming in from his sensor operators. Human forces were adapting to the bombardment faster than expected. They were moving their important facilities underground. They were spreading their command structure so that destroying one base did not cripple their operations. They were learning from each attack and changing their tactics. "Sir," Vextal reported, "the humans are sending a message to our fleet." "A surrender offer?" Zethkar asked. "No, sir. They are threatening us." Zethkar listened to the human message. It came from their military leaders, speaking in unity despite representing different nations. The message was simple. "We know you think we are weak. We know you think we will surrender. You are wrong. We will fight you on our land, in our seas, in our skies, and in the space around our world. We will make you pay for every mile you take. We will make you remember the name of Earth." The message disturbed Zethkar more than he wanted to admit. In 12 previous conquests, no species had threatened the Vorthan Empire. They had begged, negotiated, or accepted defeat. None had promised to make the Vorthans pay. Looking down at the blue planet, Zethkar felt something he had not experienced in centuries of warfare: uncertainty. These humans were not acting like any species he had conquered before. They were not acting like prey. They were acting like predators who had been challenged. The thought sent a chill through his scaled skin. But he dismissed it quickly. He was Commander Zethkar of the Vorthan Empire. He had never lost a conquest. He would not lose this one. "Prepare the ground forces," he ordered. "We will show these humans what real war looks like." The first Vorthan ground forces landed in 12 major human cities at dawn. Zethkar expected quick victories. His soldiers wore powered armor that could stop tank shells. Their weapons could melt through steel walls. Their training came from conquering dozens of worlds. The humans should have been easy to defeat. Captain Jake Morrison crouched behind a destroyed car in downtown San Francisco, watching the Vorthan landing ships touch down in the city square. The alien soldiers that emerged stood 8 feet tall, covered in dark metal armor. Their weapons glowed with deadly energy. They moved in perfect formation, just like the military textbook said advanced armies should move. Morrison had been a Marine for 15 years. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth. He knew what military discipline looked like. These Vorthan soldiers had it. But Morrison also knew something else. Discipline could become a weakness if you relied on it too much. "Second squad, hit them from the left," he whispered into his radio. "Third squad, wait for my signal." The Vorthans began their advance through the city streets. Their sensors could detect human life signs through walls and underground. Their tactical computers calculated the best routes to eliminate resistance. Everything proceeded according to their standard invasion protocol. Then Morrison's Marines struck. But they did not attack like any military force the Vorthans had faced before. Instead of trying to match firepower with firepower, the humans used tactics that seemed to ignore basic military logic. Marines with explosive charges strapped to their backs ran straight at Vorthan positions. When their bullets could not penetrate alien armor, they threw themselves bodily at the invaders, trying to damage equipment through sheer impact. Private Danny Rodriguez, barely 20 years old, saw his entire squad cut down by Vorthan plasma fire. Instead of retreating or surrendering, he grabbed every grenade he could carry and charged the alien position. The explosions could not penetrate Vorthan armor, but they damaged sensors and communication equipment. Rodriguez died, but he had given his squad leader vital information about alien weak points. The Vorthan soldiers had never encountered an enemy that treated individual lives as expendable tactical resources. In their previous conquests, most species tried to preserve their forces. They retreated when losses became too heavy. They negotiated when the situation became hopeless. The humans did none of these things. Dr. Lisa Bennett worked 18 hours straight in her underground laboratory. studying pieces of Vorthan equipment that human forces had managed to damage or destroy. Her team had no sleep, little food, and constant fear of orbital bombardment, but they kept working. "The armor has a weakness," she told her assistant, Dr. Kevin Hayes. "Look at these scans. The joints use a different metal alloy. It's stronger than the main plates, but it conducts heat differently." "What does that mean?" Hayes asked. "It means we can hurt them," Bennett replied, "but not with bullets or explosives. We need something that can generate specific heat frequencies." Bennett's team began developing new weapons in record time. They took microwave technology from kitchen appliances and modified it into directed energy weapons. They used industrial welding equipment to create portable plasma cutters. They turned every piece of human technology into potential weapons. Most importantly, they shared their discoveries instantly with human forces around the world. Unlike other species that guarded their secrets, the humans treated every innovation as common property in the war effort. Commander Rick Stone stood on the bridge of his destroyer, watching Vorthan landing craft approach the coastline. His ship's guns could not penetrate alien shields, but Stone had a different plan. "Full speed ahead," he ordered. "Ram them." His crew did not question the order. They had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. Stone's ship struck the first Vorthan landing craft at full speed, punching through its hull. The explosion destroyed both vessels, but it also sent a message to other human naval units. Alien ships could be destroyed, even at the cost of their own. Within hours, human naval forces around the world began ramming attacks. They turned their ships into guided missiles, their crews into willing sacrifices for tactical advantage. Each successful ramming attack provided data about Vorthan ship construction and weak points. The psychological impact on Vorthan forces was immediate and severe. "Sir," Sub-Commander Vextel reported to Zethkar, "our ground units are requesting immediate reinforcement. They report that human resistance is unprecedented." Zethkar studied the battle reports. In 12 hours of ground combat, his forces had suffered more casualties than in the entire conquest of 3 previous worlds. The humans were not just fighting. They were learning from every engagement and adapting their tactics in real time. But the most disturbing reports came from his own soldiers. "The humans do not fight like any species we have encountered," reported Captain Kreshevar from the New York landing zone. "They seem to welcome death if it serves their tactical purposes. My soldiers are beginning to refuse close combat operations." Another report came from the London front. Human forces are using psychological warfare tactics. They broadcast recordings of Vorthan soldiers screaming when their equipment fails. They send messages promising horrible death to any alien who sets foot in their territory. Several of my troops have requested transfer to other assignments. Zethkar had conquered 12 worlds, but he had never received reports of his own soldiers becoming afraid of the enemy. Vorthan warriors were trained from birth to fight without fear. They had faced crystal beings who could regenerate from any wound. They had battled energy creatures who could phase through matter. They had fought hive minds that coordinated attacks across entire continents. None of those enemies had frightened Vorthan soldiers. The humans were different. "Captain, Morrison's forces had been pushed back to the financial district of San Francisco, but they had not been defeated. Instead, they had turned the city's skyscrapers into a maze of death traps. Elevators became bomb shafts. Stairwells became killing zones. Office buildings became fortresses. When Vorthan forces tried to clear buildings floor by floor, they found that humans had prepared ambush points at every level. When aliens tried to use heavy weapons to destroy entire buildings, they discovered that humans had connected the structures with underground tunnels, allowing defenders to appear behind attacking forces. But the most disturbing tactic was the human willingness to collapse entire buildings on both themselves and their enemies. Morrison's forces had rigged dozens of skyscrapers with explosives, ready to bring them down if it meant destroying alien invaders. "They are making us pay for every block we take," Captain Morrison radioed to the remaining human forces. "Good. Let them learn what it costs to invade Earth." Dr. Bennett's laboratory had produced its first effective anti-Vorthan weapon, a modified microwave device that could disrupt alien armor joints. The weapon had limited range and required precise aiming, but it could disable Vorthan soldiers without killing them. This created a new problem for the aliens: wounded soldiers who could testify about human combat effectiveness. "Sir," a wounded Vorthan soldier reported to his commander, The humans have developed weapons specifically designed to counter our equipment. They studied our technology and created countermeasures in less than 24 hours. They learn faster than our tactical computers can adapt. Commander Stone's ramming attacks had inspired similar tactics worldwide. Human submarines began ramming Vorthan underwater vessels. Aircraft loaded with explosives flew directly into alien formations. Even civilian vehicles were converted into improvised weapons. The humans had turned their entire transportation infrastructure into a weapon system. By the end of the first day of ground combat, Zethkar faced a situation he had never encountered before. His forces were advancing, but they were also being systematically degraded by an enemy that seemed to become more effective with every battle. The humans were not just fighting a war. They were learning how to fight Vorthans specifically, and they were sharing that knowledge instantly across their entire species. "Sir," Bextal reported, "we are receiving requests from multiple ground commanders. They want permission to use orbital bombardment on their own positions." "Why?" Zethkar asked, though he suspected the answer. "Because they would rather risk being destroyed by our own weapons than continue fighting humans in close combat." For the first time in his military career, Commander Zethkar felt a cold fear settle in his chest. His soldiers were more afraid of humans than they were of dying. The conquest of Earth was not going according to plan. Zethkar authorized massive orbital bombardment of human cities. He told himself it was necessary to break their resistance. The truth was that his ground forces were refusing to advance. Without air support that could level entire city blocks, the plasma beams from his fleet turned downtown San Francisco into a crater of melted glass and twisted metal. New York's financial district disappeared in minutes of sustained fire. London's government buildings became smoking ruins. 12 major human cities burned under alien weapons. Zethkar expected the humans to surrender. Instead, the bombardment seemed to trigger something primal in their response. Captain Morrison stood in the ruins of what had been San Francisco's City Hall, watching the orange glow of fires burning across the bay. Half his men were dead. The other half were wounded, exhausted, and running low on ammunition. Any sane military commander would have surrendered. Morrison was no longer thinking like a sane military commander. "Command, this is Bravo 7, he spoke into his radio. "San Francisco downtown is gone, but we're still operational." Switching to Phase 2 tactics. Phase 2 had been developed during the bombardment by human commanders worldwide. If the aliens wanted to destroy their cities, the humans would make sure those cities became traps that could destroy alien forces in return. Every piece of rubble became a weapon. Every crater became a fighting position. Every destroyed building became a fortress. But Phase 2 involved more than just defensive tactics. The humans had decided to take the war beyond Earth's atmosphere. Dr. Lisa Bennett's laboratory had moved 3 times during the bombardment, each time going deeper underground. Her team now worked in abandoned subway tunnels, powered by generators stolen from destroyed buildings. They had not seen sunlight in 4 days. "We've cracked their communication system," she reported to General Hayes, who had taken command of North American forces after his superior was killed in the New York bombardment. "Their encryption is based on mathematical principles we can understand. More importantly, we can interfere with it." Bennett's team had done more than just develop countermeasures to Vorthan weapons. They had reverse-engineered alien technology and improved upon it. Human creativity combined with desperate necessity had achieved in days what normally took years of development. "Show me," Hayes ordered. Bennett activated a device that looked like a television remote control, welded to a car battery. Immediately, the radio crackled with confused Vorthan voices speaking in their own language. "We're intercepting their tactical communications," Bennett explained. "But we can also send false orders. We can make their units attack each other. We can send them into ambushes. We can make them think their own commanders are giving them orders to retreat." General Hayes smiled for the first time since the invasion began. "How many of these devices can you make?" "Give us the resources and we can have 100 ready in 12 hours. But the most ambitious human project was taking place in secret facilities around the world. Commander Rick Stone, now calling himself Admiral of Humanity's improvised space fleet, was overseeing the conversion of every available spacecraft into weapons. "We're not trying to match their technology," Stone explained to the International Council of Military Leaders meeting in an underground bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. "We're trying to turn our limitations into advantages. Human spacecraft were primitive compared to Vorthon vessels. But humans had something the aliens did not: complete willingness to use their ships as guided missiles. Every human vessel in space had been converted into a potential kamikaze weapon. "The International Space Station is ready for the first attack," reported Captain Amanda Price, commander of the station. "We've attached every rocket engine we could find to the main structure. When we ram their command ship, the explosion should disable their fleet coordination." Stone nodded grimly. "Understood. Wait for our signal." The psychological warfare campaign had begun immediately after the bombardment. Human forces had captured several Vorthon soldiers during ground fighting, and they had learned disturbing information about alien psychology. Vorthons were trained to be fearless in battle, but their courage came from confidence in their technological superiority. When that confidence was shaken, they became susceptible to fear in ways that humans were not. Captain Morrison had discovered this during street fighting in the ruins of San Francisco. When his forces played recordings of human voices promising revenge against alien invaders, Vorthon soldiers became noticeably less effective. When they broadcast sounds of Vorthon equipment being destroyed, alien units began making tactical mistakes. "They're not used to being afraid," Morrison reported to his superiors. "Fear makes them stupid. We need to make them more afraid." The human resistance had evolved into something that resembled a military organization, but one that operated by rules no traditional army would recognize. Units in different cities coordinated attacks across multiple continents simultaneously. Scientists shared discoveries instantly with military forces worldwide. Civilians provided intelligence, resources, and manpower without being asked. Most importantly, the humans had developed a communication network that survived orbital bombardment. Using a combination of underground cables, hidden radio transmitters, and captured alien technology, human forces could coordinate their activities in real time across the entire planet. Dr. Bennett's team had developed their masterpiece, a computer virus specifically designed to infiltrate Vorthon systems. Unlike traditional human computer viruses, this program was designed to learn and adapt, using principles copied from human immune systems. "It doesn't just damage their computers," Bennett explained to the assembled scientists working in facilities around the world. "It makes their own technology work against them. Their weapons misfire. Their navigation systems give false readings. Their communication networks broadcast human propaganda instead of military orders." The virus was already spreading through the Vorthon fleet. Alien ships began experiencing equipment failures that their technicians could not explain. Weapon systems became unreliable. Navigation computers sent ships on incorrect courses. Communication networks filled with static and interference. Admiral Stone's space fleet launched their first coordinated attack while the Vorthon systems were compromised by Bennett's virus. The International Space Station, converted into a massive missile, struck the alien command ship with enough force to disable its main weapon systems, but Stone had planned for more than one attack. Every human spacecraft in orbit, from research satellites to cargo vessels, had been rigged with explosives and guidance systems. They struck the Vorthon fleet in a coordinated wave that no alien commander had anticipated. The damage was not enough to destroy the invasion force, but it was enough to send a clear message. Humans could fight in space as effectively as they fought on the ground. Zethkar stood on his damaged bridge, watching repair crews work to restore his ship's systems. In 30 hours of combat, he had lost more vessels than in his previous 3 conquests combined. His ground forces were requesting evacuation from multiple cities. His space fleet was reporting equipment failures throughout their computer networks. "Sir," Subcommander Vextal reported, "we're receiving communications from the Galactic Command. They want a status report on the conquest progress." Zethkar did not want to send that report. How could he explain that a primitive species had developed countermeasures to advanced Vorthon technology in less than a week? How could he describe soldiers who seemed to become more dangerous when they were hurt? How could he report that his own forces were developing fear of an enemy they should have defeated easily? "Tell Galactic Command that the conquest is proceeding, but that human resistance is more organized than anticipated," he finally said. But Zethkar knew he was lying. This was not organized resistance. This was something he had never seen before. An entire species learning how to fight his empire, and learning faster than the empire could adapt. The humans were broadcasting messages into space now, not just to each other but to anyone who might be listening. The messages were not pleas for help or offers of surrender. They were promises of retribution. To any species listening to this transmission, the human message said, "We are the people of Earth. We have been invaded by the Vorthan Empire. We want you to know that we will not surrender, we will not submit, and we will not forgive. We will remember every attack on our world. We will repay every weapon fired at our people. We will hunt down every alien who participated in this invasion, no matter how long it takes or how far we must travel." The message disturbed Zethkar more than any military defeat. Other conquered species had never threatened to hunt down their conquerors. They accepted defeat and tried to rebuild their lives under Vorthan rule. The humans were promising to become the hunters. Standing on his damaged bridge, watching his fleet struggle to maintain combat effectiveness against an enemy that should have been crushed days ago, Commander Zethkar felt something he had never experienced in his long military career: the fear that he might lose. Not just lose a battle, but lose everything. Because these humans did not fight like prey. They fought like apex predators who had been challenged for dominance. The Vorthan reinforcements arrived like thunder in the darkness of space. 300 additional ships dropped out of hyperspace, their weapons charging as they took positions around Earth. Zethkar felt relief flood through him as he watched the massive fleet assemble. Surely this would end human resistance. General Morketh, commander of the reinforcement fleet, contacted Zethkar immediately. "Commander, explain how a primitive world has required additional forces. The humans are more adaptive than anticipated," Zethkar replied carefully. "Their resistance has proven unusually determined." Morketh's laugh was harsh. "Determined? Commander, I have brought enough firepower to sterilize this entire planet. No species is determined enough to resist that." But Zethkar had learned not to underestimate humans. As he watched the reinforcement fleet take positions, he wondered if even 3 times their original strength would be enough. Captain Morrison crouched in the ruins of what had been Golden Gate Park, watching the new alien ships fill the sky. His remaining Marines looked to him for reassurance, but Morrison had none to give. The humans had fought beyond all reasonable expectations, but there were limits to what courage and cleverness could accomplish. Then his radio crackled with a message from Dr. Bennett's underground command center. "All units, this is Science Command. New alien arrivals have been analyzed. They're using the same communication protocols as the original fleet. Repeat, they are vulnerable to our electronic warfare systems." Morrison smiled grimly. The aliens had made their first serious mistake. They had assumed that bringing more of the same technology would solve their problems. They had not realized that humans had already learned to turn that technology against them. "All squads prepare for Phase 3 operations." Morrison radioed to his forces. "The aliens just gave us a bigger target." Dr. Bennett's team had spent the last 48 hours modifying their computer virus to work on a larger scale. The original program had been designed to infiltrate individual ships. The new version could spread through an entire fleet, jumping from vessel to vessel through their communication networks. "It's ready," Bennett reported to the Joint Command Council meeting in the deep underground bunker. "But we need a way to introduce it to their fleet." Admiral Stone had the answer. "We've been monitoring their communication patterns. They use tight beam transmissions between ships, but they also maintain an open channel for emergency broadcasts. If we can transmit our virus on that frequency, we can infect their entire fleet at once," Bennett finished. "But we need a powerful transmitter, something that can reach their ships in high orbit." "I have an idea," Stone replied. "But it's going to require some volunteers." The plan was insane, but insanity had become humanity's greatest weapon. Stone's team had converted a nuclear submarine into a space-capable missile. The submarine would surface, fire straight up through the atmosphere, and transmit Bennett's virus directly to the alien fleet before exploding. Captain Tony Walsh commanded the submarine. He and his crew had volunteered for the mission, knowing they would not survive, but their sacrifice would cripple the alien reinforcement fleet at the moment of its arrival. "Surface the boat," Walsh ordered as his submarine broke through the ocean's surface for the last time. The improvised missile launched perfectly, carrying its electronic payload toward the Vorthan fleet. As it reached the edge of space, it began broadcasting Bennett's improved virus on every frequency the aliens used for communication. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Vorthans. General Morketh watched in horror as his reinforcement fleet began to malfunction. Ships reported navigation failures, weapons misfires, and communication breakdowns. Vessels that had operated flawlessly for decades suddenly could not perform basic functions. "What is happening?" he demanded of his technicians. "Sir, our computer systems are being attacked by some kind of adaptive program. It appears to learn our security protocols and then use them against us." Morketh had never heard of such technology. "How long to repair the damage?" "Unknown, sir. Every time we fix one system, the program adapts and attacks another. It appears to be designed specifically to counter Vorthon technology." On the planet below, human forces launched their coordinated counterattack. Captain Morrison's Marines emerged from the ruins of San Francisco, armed with weapons that combined human engineering with captured alien technology. They moved through the destroyed city like ghosts, appearing behind Vorthon positions and disappearing before the aliens could respond. But Morrison's forces were no longer fighting alone. Resistance groups from around the world had coordinated their attacks to begin simultaneously. As the alien fleet struggled with computer failures, human forces struck at Vorthon ground positions in every major city on Earth. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know their every move. Human forces intercepted Vorthon communications, anticipated their tactics, and struck at their weak points with precision that seemed impossible for such a primitive species. Dr. Bennett's virus had done more than simply disable alien computers. It had given humans access to the entire Vorthon communication network. Every order, every tactical plan, every status report was now available to human commanders in real time. "We can see everything they're doing," Bennett reported excitedly to the command council. "Their fleet positions, their troop movements, their supply schedules. They have no secrets from us anymore." Admiral Stone's space fleet had grown from a handful of converted civilian ships to a proper military force. Using salvaged Vorthon technology and human engineering, they had created hybrid vessels that combined alien power with human unpredictability. "Attack pattern Delta," Stone ordered as his fleet engaged the confused Vorthon reinforcements. "Target their communication arrays first, then their weapons systems." The human ships moved like wolves attacking a confused herd. They were individually weaker than the alien vessels, but they coordinated their attacks perfectly, while the Vorthons struggled with malfunctioning systems. Stone's flagship, built from 3 captured Vorthon shuttles welded around a human destroyer, rammed directly through the hull of an alien cruiser. The explosion destroyed both ships, but it also created a gap in the alien formation that allowed other human vessels to attack from unexpected angles. Zethkar watched the battle from his damaged command ship, feeling something he had never experienced before: complete helplessness. His reinforcement fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy using their own technology against them. "Sir," Vextal reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 12 of our ground commanders. They say they cannot continue fighting humans with our current equipment reliability." Surrender requests. Zethkar had never heard those words from Vorthon military officers. In 12 previous conquests, his forces had never even considered the possibility of defeat. But the humans had done something no other species had accomplished. They had made Vorthon soldiers afraid to fight. "Sir," another officer reported, "the humans are broadcasting a message to our entire fleet." The message came from Captain Morrison, speaking from the ruins of San Francisco. His face was covered with dirt and blood, but his voice was steady and confident. "Attention, Vorthon forces. You came to our world believing we were weak. You thought we would surrender quickly. You were wrong. We have learned to fight you. We have learned to hurt you. We have learned to make you afraid. This is your first lesson in human warfare. We do not surrender. We adapt, we improve. We become more dangerous with every battle. You can destroy our cities, but we will turn the ruins into weapons. You can kill our soldiers, but more will take their place. You can bring more ships, but we will learn to destroy those too. You have 2 choices. Leave our world now, or learn what it means to fight a species that treats war as education." The message was broadcast on every frequency the Vorthons used. Every alien in the fleet heard Morrison's words, and more importantly, they heard the absolute confidence in his voice. General Morketh tried to restore order to his fleet, but the human virus had spread too far through their systems. Ships that tried to coordinate attacks found themselves firing on each other. Navigation computers sent vessels on collision courses. Communication networks filled with human propaganda instead of military orders. But the worst part was not the technical failures. It was the growing fear among his soldiers. Vorthan warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds were requesting transfers away from Earth. Officers were refusing to lead ground assaults. Entire units were claiming equipment failures to avoid combat with human forces. "Sir," Morketh's aide reported quietly, "morale among the fleet is problematic. Many soldiers are saying that humans are not a normal species. Some are calling them demons." Zethkar understood the fear. He had felt it growing in himself for days. These humans did not fight like any species in the galaxy. They seemed to welcome death if it served their purposes. They learned from every defeat and came back stronger. They turned their own weaknesses into weapons. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to enjoy the violence. Other species fought because they had to. Humans fought because they had discovered they were good at it. Standing on his damaged bridge, watching his reinforcement fleet. The order to retreat came from Galactic Command after Zethkar's final report. He had been honest about the losses. 60% of the invasion force destroyed or disabled, ground forces refusing to engage human units, and a complete breakdown of fleet coordination due to human electronic warfare. What he had not reported was his growing certainty that the humans had been ready for them. The withdrawal took 3 days. Human forces did not celebrate or cheer as the alien ships left Earth's orbit. Instead, they watched silently, recording everything. Captain Morrison stood in the ruins of San Francisco, using captured Vorthan equipment to track the departing fleet. "Make sure we have the engine signatures of every ship," he ordered his technical team. "I want to be able to identify these vessels if we ever see them again." Dr. Bennett's team had already begun analyzing the abandoned Vorthan equipment scattered across Earth. Within hours of the alien departure, human scientists were reverse engineering alien technology and improving upon it. What had taken the Vorthans centuries to develop, humans were mastering in weeks. "We're not just copying their designs," Bennett explained to the newly formed Earth Defense Council. "We're making them better. Human creativity combined with alien technology is producing innovations that neither species could have achieved alone." Admiral Stone commanded humanity's space fleet from the bridge of his new flagship, built entirely from captured Vorthan technology, but designed according to human tactical principles. The ship was faster and more maneuverable than any vessel in the original alien fleet. "Begin long-range patrols of the outer system," he ordered. "I want early warning if they come back. And start construction on the orbital defense platforms. If we have to fight them again, we'll be ready." But Stone was not just preparing for defense. Under his command, human engineers were designing spacecraft capable of interstellar travel. Earth was no longer content to wait for aliens to visit them. Zethkar found himself assigned to a monitoring station in the outer rim of Vorthan space, officially tasked with observing human development from a safe distance. The assignment was punishment for his failure to conquer Earth, but it also gave him a unique perspective on humanity's rapid advancement. From his distant post, he watched Earth transform itself in ways that defied everything he understood about species development. The humans did not just rebuild their destroyed cities. They redesigned them as fortress cities capable of repelling orbital bombardment. They did not just repair their military. They created a unified planetary defense force that combined the best tactics from every nation on their world. Most disturbing to Zethkar, they did not just study captured Vorthan technology. They improved it beyond what his own species had achieved. Intelligence Report 47, he dictated to his personal log 6 months after the failed invasion. Human technological advancement continues at unprecedented rates. They have achieved interstellar communication capabilities and established contact with neutral species in nearby systems. Their space fleet now includes vessels that appear to exceed Vorthan specifications. But technology was not the most frightening aspect of human development. It was their attitude. Captain Morrison had been promoted to general and placed in command of Earth's ground forces. Under his leadership, human military doctrine had evolved into something that no other species in the galaxy practiced. Warfare designed not just to defeat enemies, but to learn from them and become stronger. "Every conflict teaches us something new," Morrison explained in a broadcast that was intercepted by Vorthan monitoring stations. "The alien invasion was our education in galactic-level warfare. We learned how to fight enemies with superior technology. We learned how to turn our weaknesses into advantages. Most importantly, we learned that we can win. Dr. Bennett had become Earth's chief scientist, leading research teams that were developing technologies beyond anything the Vorthons possessed. But her most significant discovery was not mechanical or electronic. "We've been analyzing the psychological profiles of our alien prisoners," she reported to the Earth Defense Council. "Every species in the galaxy fights according to the same basic principles. Preserve your forces, minimize casualties, negotiate when the situation becomes unfavorable. Humans are the only species that treats individual survival as secondary to tactical advantage." "What does that mean?" asked General Hayes. "It means we fight like no one else in the galaxy fights. Other species see war as something to be endured and ended as quickly as possible. We see war as a learning opportunity. That makes us more dangerous than any weapon." Admiral Stone's fleet had begun what Earth officially called exploration missions to nearby star systems. The missions were diplomatic in nature, but they also served as demonstrations of human capabilities to any species that might be considering invasion. "We're not conquering anyone," Stone explained to his officers. "We're introducing ourselves to the galaxy. We're letting them know that Earth is now a spacefaring civilization, and that we're prepared to defend our interests wherever they might be threatened." But Zethkar, monitoring these missions from his distant post, understood their true purpose. The humans were not just defending themselves, they were establishing themselves as a galactic power. 1 year after the failed invasion, Zethkar received intelligence that changed his understanding of the entire conflict. The information came from a captured human database that Vorthon spies had acquired from a research facility on Earth. The database contained records of human activities dating back 50 years before the invasion. Radio telescope observations, analysis of alien communication signals, studies of interstellar travel methods. Most shocking of all, detailed plans for planetary defense against technologically superior enemies. The humans had known the Vorthons were coming. Personal log, classification maximum security, Zethkar recorded in his private files. Analysis of captured human data indicates that their species had been monitoring galactic communications for decades prior to our invasion. They knew of the Vorthon Empire. They knew our methods. They knew our technology. Everything we interpreted as desperate improvisation was actually the implementation of long-term preparation. The revelation explained everything that had puzzled him about human resistance. Their rapid adaptation to alien technology was not miraculous learning. It was the result of decades of study. Their coordinated tactics were not inspired improvisation. They were carefully planned responses to anticipated invasion. Scenarios, most disturbing of all their apparent desperation, had been an act designed to make the Vorthons underestimate them. The humans were never fighting for survival, Zethkar concluded in his final report to Galactic Command. They were testing themselves against a galactic power to measure their own capabilities. The invasion was not a conquest attempt that failed. It was a training exercise that succeeded. The report was classified and buried in Galactic Command archives. The official story remained that Earth was too primitive and isolated to pose a threat to galactic stability. But Zethkar knew better. 2 years after the invasion, Earth made its first official contact with the Galactic Council. The message was simple and direct. To the representatives of galactic civilization, "We are humanity of Earth. We have achieved interstellar capability and wish to establish diplomatic relations with peaceful species. We also wish to inform you that Earth is now under the protection of the Human Defense Force, and that any hostile action toward our world or our citizens will result in immediate and overwhelming retaliation. We hope for friendship with those who seek it, but we are prepared for war with those who choose it." The message was broadcast to every inhabited system in the galaxy. It was accompanied by detailed specifications of human military capabilities, including ships that exceeded the performance of most galactic vessels and weapons based on technologies that no other species had developed. But the most chilling part of the message was its tone. Other species requesting galactic recognition sent diplomatic messages filled with requests and negotiations. The humans sent what could only be described as a declaration of policy. They were not asking for acceptance into galactic civilization. They were announcing their arrival and establishing their terms for interaction. Zethkar submitted his final intelligence report 5 years after the failed invasion. By then, Human ships were regular visitors to dozens of star systems. Human technology was being studied by species far more advanced than the Vorthons. Human military advisors were being requested by governments facing security threats. Conclusion, he wrote. Humanity represents the most significant development in galactic affairs in recorded history. They are not simply another spacefaring species. They are apex predators who have evolved to use warfare as a form of education and advancement. They do not fight wars to survive. They fight wars to become stronger. Every conflict makes them more dangerous. I have seen many wars across the galaxy. I have witnessed the fury of crystalline warriors who could regenerate from any wound. I have observed the precision of hive minds that coordinated perfectly across entire worlds. I have fought energy beings who could phase through matter and manipulate reality itself. All of them were formidable enemies, but all of them fought according to rules that could be understood and